easier said than done. In the National Water Mission, which arises from this, the climate change protocol, we have a very simple mission. Till 2017, we want to increase water usage efficiency by 20%. We are not going into big things, big this, big that, saying 2017, 7 years from now, perhaps do 2% or 1.5% every year. Just increase water usage efficiency. Don't let water go waste. And perhaps that, I think, may be a good first step, because in this sector, what we do need is baby steps. We've tried all those huge dams and all those big this thing. We've tried a lot of things, but I think something easily achievable, which I think can start at a local level and say, okay, we'll save a little more water than we normally did. Perhaps that might work as well. I think I've exceeded your 10 minutes, so thank you.
Thank you. You haven't exceeded your time limit, but thank you very much, Mr. Vijay Singh. I'll request Professor Samir Brahmachari to speak and also make his observations on what the Chennai Action Plan is all about.
Dr. Swaminathan, my colleagues and distinguished policymakers and participants. As you can realize that there are three people who are part of the policy-making decision. And I'm here not because I have my capacity doesn't permit me to take policy decision, but only to execute. So the policy, I think we are fantastic. There's no problem. This is a wonderful document made. Question is, how do you implement? And that's why there is a discussion on linking grassroots action policy to down road. Let's look at a scenario in which a very major policy decision 40 years back made a massive change in this nation. That was in 70s, which got changed our patent policy. We decided to remove product patent and got into a process patent. Now, a single policy decision had a large ramification in healthcare. Why I say this? Because very few people know that before 1970, India was the most expensive place for drugs and pharmaceutical. You had to pay more in health than ever before. So most of the people, if you get typhoid, you couldn't afford chloromycetin. You had to just wait and put ice and pray God that this disease gets recovered. That was 50s and 60s. Country built national laboratories between 50s and 70s, but these national laboratories could not compete with the Western world and multinationals. But 70s policy decision during Mrs. Gandhi's time, that is the process patent over product patent. A single decision. Today we haven't realized in 40 years down the road how low cost healthcare we became a world leader. So therefore the generic is an outcome of a policy decision, but backed up by already invested in S&T institutions, and especially three of the institutions, National Chemical Laboratory, Central Drug Research Institute. So when I look at the vision, you look at the policy is always backed up by major decisions of capacity. This policy is wonderful. Now, if let's imagine an idealized city. If you want to look at Israel, a country was built on complete sand and desert, but I remember I've gone there 40 years back, and it is where they put excellent Java oranges. So micro oozing water pipes running around the sand desert. So therefore, it is possible if you have the right sense of science and technology. So the ideal Indian society will be under this climate action plan, that we create higher crop productivity. Now, higher crop productivity does not necessarily mean this will take care. We need better nutrition content value. So therefore, the farmer at the end must, using X amount of water, gets a higher return, and that's a very important point. The whole technology for low water demand, whether it is a new generation of cement that will not need water to cure, to a new generation of crops that will work with very low water, is a complete new approach has to be taken up. So these are the science issues that need to be done. Minimize, again, you have to make sure the carbon footprint is low, but the soil will get eroded, so therefore soil productivity has to go up. Then therefore a new technology, can we match the seeds with the soil and see which seed will have the highest productivity? So just like GPS, Google, can we create an entire soil metagenomic library so that exactly we know which soil, which seed with the least water will be the most productive. So therefore some drastic action plan. Okay. Of course, the use of solar, wind energy to the local so that you don't carry the grid. But I've been always looking at water canals and thinking that why do we have the canals drawn like this, where you have maximum surface area to highest evaporation? Why can't we have an engineering to draw the canals like this, so that the water depth is high, but the surface area is low? I don't know why civil engineering cannot be done, so that the water runs, it doesn't evaporate. Then one can start thinking, can we have these waters not to evaporate out? So can we have weeds, which will grow very well, like money plant-like things, and grow across, and we can give a shed. So use that water vapor to grow a beetle, So complete imaginative approaches have to be brought in out of box by which you make sure the water evaporation. So to do all this, I don't think scientists sitting in the laboratory or the policymakers in South Block, North Block can actually implement it. Eventually it has to be implemented by people like Swaminathan and his foundation, like people with the NGOs. So to do this, what we did is two things we have done. We initiated a program to realize that the biggest problem is that the energy efficiency mission program, actually there is no R&D component. But it is this which kills very large amount of deforestation. Whether it's making a brick, making even the jaggery, everybody burns wood. So that huge energy efficiency mission should have huge R&D to reduce energy requirement of producing whatever the farmer needs. I just would like to close by saying that we discussed about the seawoods, extension, education. I don't know how many of you, sir, I'll give you one. There is with the National Geography, we created a carbon footprint movie. The movie has now 25 million viewing already across India. All schools, thousands of schools we have circulated. And so therefore, I think awareness of savings, energy, without compromising and sacrificing our requirement of the living standard. So therefore, we'll remain 1/20th of American footprint, but we will have the equal lifestyle. How is this issue that we can do? I would like to take questions better than this, but I would like to say that we realized it. So what we did recently, we recently called NGO Meet, very large. And I know how many of our technologies which are available sitting at laboratory but doesn't reach the people. So we called hundreds of NGOs and we had a meet with the NGOs to say that, can you take this and expand it? So a new program we have launched called CSR 800. This needs business plan. This is for 800 million bottom of the pyramid people. How can we give them technology that will increase their earning, which is easy, adoptable, local, resource base? And I just thought I'll use this platform to say that we are actually we realize that we're putting up the biggest exhibition ever before. We have done in Pragati Maidan during the trade fair. This is exclusively addressed to very large sections of the masses to look at whether we can take those technologies to the masses. So the issue is, I think the document I read, this document I know very well, the National Action Plan, the Madras part rule, I am completely with the belief that it is the only way. If we have 1 million people take up the job, we can actually do it. And then one influences 6 influences another 6. So, a cascading takes place. It will not be possible by 100,000 or 1,000 scientists to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Brahmachari. Mr. Gopalakrishnan, please.
Mr. Swaminathan, ladies and gentlemen. It was Ram Guha, one of our eminent historians, in fact an environmental historian to start with, who said in the 80s that the environment debate in India is largely a debate in the cities about what's happening in the countryside. If you look back after 2 decades, the situation has completely changed, as this video footage has shown us. The climate change issue today is perhaps one of the most shared concerns in the community among citizens of all regions. And if you travel around, like I was in Shimla 2 months back, there was not much rain in the last 2 years in Himachal. And the driver told me, said, what to do, it's all because of climate change. So the fact that 1 billion people are sensitive about this issue is the biggest resource that we must tap into policy while trying to make correctives. The position that India has taken as far as the climate change issue is concerned, we have had this 2-track approach. You're all aware of this in this enlightened audience about the international conversation that's going on climate change, which is almost like a parallel track where there is not much headway. Quite often there is an impasse. There was a lot of excitement 2 years back, then the meltdown came. There is now much less interest. There is no clarity on issues like burden sharing. In fact, positions that were universally accepted and mandated by the United Nations and such organizations are now being reopened. So the international conversation is somewhat stuck. We hope there is a meeting in Cancun in another month. And maybe, and the world is not very optimistic about solutions coming out of here. Maybe we might advance, one can prejudge the outcomes. But the Indian position has been that irrespective of what the international conversation is, we should be taking actions on our own which are good for us, which are no regrets measures, which actually lead us towards a path of sustainable development. The national mission, the 8 national missions on climate change are actually anchored in that framework, that India would on its own try to accelerate its measures for sustainable development, and these 8 missions are the verticals through which it will work. My colleagues have mentioned some of these missions. I'll just give an overview to see where we have tried to break some new ground in terms of communities, and that role is something that these kinds of dialogues can refine and expand. If you look at these 8 national missions, many of them, few of them may be considered technical. For example, the National Solar Mission needs a lot of disruptive technologies to reduce the cost of solar. So that's one end of the spectrum. But if you look at various other missions, fundamentally the action is a lot of do-it-yourself action by communities. To start with the National Water Mission, one of the first things that the government intends to do through this mission has been, we have in fact, incidentally, out of these 8 national missions, 7 national missions have been cleared in principle by the Prime Minister's National Council, and only one that's left, that's Green India, that's also coming to the Council within a very short time. And so within a month, all these national missions would stand cleared and action would start on the ground. If you take the National Water Mission, one of the first things that we want to do is to place all water information in the public domain. Today, most of this data is closed because, how can you have effective debate on the coastal zone and people living in the coastal zone? How can they debate it when that particular information, because our coastline is strategic, all that is closed and kept within the government. So, there has been a new public data policy that has been cleared by the cabinet, which says that all non-strategic information should be in the public domain. Because this is what would engage, this is the kind of information with which the communities can engage with the help of interveners and challenge many of the current policies that we have, refine those policies, and in a true democratic framework, advance them in the desired direction. We hope to be putting out a lot of this water-related information in the public domain shortly. Similarly, in the water mission, another major area of activity is the horizontal action that has now become possible, working with programs that are designed to address the linkage between environmental degradation and poverty reduction. The most important example is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. It works in every panchayat, it works in every village. There is a lot of possibilities for the challenge that Mr. Singh flagged of water augmentation and the fact that we're losing a lot of water as runoff. This situation is actually under a lot of change. We have done several lakhs of water harvesting structures. I'm not saying they're all perfect. There is a lot of improvement possible because after all these are done by communities. They are also improving their skills as they go along. You cannot have an overdose of technical support for all this because that will be at the cost of the public, of the community being in the driver's seat. But the fact is that 65% of the work done under NREGA, on which we spend annually about 40,000 crores, is spent on water augmentation measures. Now, these will drive new policies too, because just like land reform, land reform has been legally accepted, but though in practice not so more honored in the breach. But water reform is an area in which there are a lot of possibilities. For example, we do not see the groundwater aquifers as collective resource. There could be possibilities of, like, people who are drawing that water resource and causing harm to the neighbors who have an equal right on it. We don't have compensatory mechanisms for all this. People have been talking about this, but all this can come. But all this will come through the sharing of information. And much of this information on so-called, which is closed within the technical domain, will open up. And that, I think, is a big opportunity that the missions will throw open once they become operational. Take a mission like sustainable, the second mission like sustainable agriculture again, which Mr. Basu detailed here. Here again, there is possibility, like he said, one clear area of focus is that of research, agricultural research, to make, to generate seeds that, short-term duration, how can they become climate resilient and all that. That's one major area of work. An equally important area of work is people have been adapting to the stresses in rainfall and moisture stress and all that, and evolving techniques of coping which can be widely shared. And the good thing about the agricultural management in our country is that in the last 3-4 years, we have transited to a decentralized management much more than before through the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana. So now there are district plans made for agriculture. So a lot of these local action that can lead to where communities and citizens can directly get engaged, which is the theme of our discussion today. There is a much greater possibility, and this mission, I'm sure, will further enlarge on those opportunities. If you take a mission like that of the third mission is on sustainable habitats, where actually, though of course it's a very large term, but we're focusing primarily on the urban areas, which have become more unsustainable in one sense. Here again, the issue is one of not only developing green standards for habitats, every day if you look at the newspaper, it is the first front pages of a housing related advertisement. But none of them talk about what they're going to do about energy efficiency of those buildings or any kind of green standards that are that could need to be put in, especially since the last 2 years we have been talking about issues of climate change. So the mission on sustainable habitat, its first charge, there are green standards available. In fact, there are 3 or 4 agencies in India which have developed green standards, including private ones like the CII. These need to be integrated into a common sustainable habitat standards. But more important than that, and this is where the communities come in, these need to be operationalized. You can have building codes, you can have energy efficiency codes, but they lie around in statute books or instructions. To give them teeth in their implementation, they have to be internalized into the municipal laws that govern permissions that are given to buildings. So the first step that we want to do under the mission on sustainable habitats is persuade the municipal bodies to adopt these standards and make the building permissions subscribe to these standards, so that an entire new generation of green buildings and which are climate resilient and energy efficient, they come into being. So there is the second major area in that mission is that of promoting public transport. Many of our cities have moved in a big way into public transport. If you look at the picture today compared to picture, say, 5 years back, there is a much better public transport system. Delhi is a good example. In those cities which have been able to avail of assistance under this program. The stimulus, the investment that had to be made under the stimulus package gave us an opportunity to add something like 15,000 public transport buses and create BRT corridors, etc., in selected cities. So this area of activity of promotion of public transport, which has a major role in reducing the carbon footprint, this would also be a major area of focus under the mission on sustainable habitats. And third, of course, is capacity building, where the area is very, very huge. Municipal leadership and also citizens, urban citizens, citizens in urban areas, they would, the capacity building at both these levels, at level of the community and at the professional leadership, is absolutely essential for a mission on sustainable habitat to succeed, because they could disseminate standards, question when the standards are not implemented, and a more aware citizenry can really make a difference in this mission. How am I doing on time? I have done 3-4 missions. Okay. The mission on energy efficiency, this has actually been, it's operational now. This has been, in fact, a crystallization of the ongoing work by organizations like the BEE, the Bureau of Energy Standards. And you must have, many states, those of you are from the southern states, I'm from Kerala, so I know about Kerala. They've already started replacing, there is a program in which they want to replace all their energy inefficient bulbs with the new CFL kind of technologies. And these are all also, in fact, I think Kerala has got the support of from the Clean Development Mechanism for doing the replacement. So the replacement costs are also met. So there are a lot of opportunities, and they have created a system by which they expect something they expect a saving of something like 74,000, if I'm not mistaken. This scheme is called the Budget Lamp Yojana. This Budget Lamp Yojana is under operation in some cities, and in fact, some states want to do it across the states. So the energy efficiency thing is, I think, well, and they have identified the better performers in each vertical of the industry, whether it's steel or cement, and trying to incentivize through a system of incentives and disincentives, push the poorly performing ones to the standards that we've already achieved with the better ones. The National Solar Mission, of course, is an extremely ambitious one. This is where the big opportunity may lie, but this is an issue of how disruptive can technologies get. And one cannot predict. The best brains in the world are today working on this. And India wants to be a part of that process and, in fact, be a leader, global leader in this area. You're aware of the kind of big strides that China is making in this field. The United States research is there's a lot of interest in the Silicon Valley to move to into a kind of a solar valleys of the world, actually, in one sense. And we have a very ambitious target of 20,000 megawatts to come from solar. In fact, 1,000 by 2013. And the work, as you would have read from the newspapers, the work is in progress. People are signing MOUs. There is a lot of interest in the solar mission. Interestingly, when I happened to read in a newspaper, in a magazine recently, that this was a debate in India in the 40s between Baba and Kosambi. And Kosambi then had argued for solar as against nuclear. Of course, both nuclear and solar are now both on the side of clean technologies. But in fact, they fell out and one of them had to leave the position that he was occupying. So this India, which has historically been associated with sun worship, perhaps maybe the first country, maybe ideally poised to find solutions to this issue of solar energy, but work needs to be done both on solar photovoltaic, reducing the cost of material, solar thermal. All these areas need a lot of research and new disruptive technologies to make it economic. Right now, it is a subsidy-driven program. The way we want to go about the mission is to make the subsidy not a prop so that it's a subsidy thing continuing, but make it graduate to incentives. And so that's the kind of work. It's complex, but the work is underway. Both the energy efficiency mission and solar mission have actually started working. There are there is a mission on the Himalayan ecosystems, which is a mission to be done in partnership with the Himalayan states. There are a lot of, they need to be first convinced that this is not a trade-off between their development opportunities and their environmental concerns that relate to climate change. So it's an essay in persuasion is going on. The chief ministers are on board. The discussions have advanced to some extent, and we'll have this mission is coming to the cabinet shortly. There is yet another mission on strategic knowledge, where India wants to use India has both eminent individuals and some eminent institutions working in the area of climate change. They need to be networked, and perhaps on a wiki model. There should be opportunities for co-creating solutions relating to areas and relating to challenges in climate change. And the mission on strategic knowledge is intended to do precisely that. There is a final last mission, which is the one that's yet to come to the council, but the draft papers have come and the meeting is scheduled on the 15th. Maybe a date might just get postponed a bit, which is the National Green India Mission. Now, this is